Hey everybody, and welcome to the podcast. My name's Latto, and in this podcast I'm going to talk to you today about what my work-life balance looks like for me, and also I want to talk to you a little bit about how I managed to get that work-life balance that I'm happy with. So in terms of how much work do I do and how much life do I do, they're kind of intertwined. Now my situation obviously is I'm self-employed. I choose when to work and when not to work, whereas if you're in a full-time job, obviously that's very difficult for you to do. So, step number one would be to leave your full-time job and run your own business, because whatever the job is that you're doing, if you're a customer service rep, you could start a business with customer service reps that then work for other companies that want to outsource that, for example. Or let's say you work doing social media for a company. You could start doing social media for other small businesses. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that you don't know where your next income is going to come from, your next job, that kind of thing. So you've got to put some systems and some processes in there that are going to allow you to start generating leads that you can close and start building up regular income. But the number one aspect from a work-life perspective is to go self-employed. Now, also, bear in mind, a lot of people make the transition from work to being self-employed, and actually all they've really done is buy themselves another job with an even worse boss, because they're their own boss and it's an even worse boss than the other boss that used to have in a full-time job. But the work-life balance for a person who's self-employed tends to be work, not life. So there's a couple of things then that you need to start doing in order to translate this. Now, it's for the last 20 years, I was just thinking about this. I had a friend of mine who ran his own business 20 years ago, and I went down the property path. And here we are 20 years on, and he's still got his business, and it's still going fine. It gives him a nice lifestyle, but he's still having to work 60-hour weeks in that business. Whereas, because I invested in property, the price of property goes up, the price of rents goes up generally, the value of the mortgages decreases if you're paying them down, but it decreases anyway because of inflation is eroding. £100,000 20 years ago was worth a lot more than 100 grand today, and 100 grand in another 20 years is going to be worth even less. Mars bar is going to be like £5, £8 in 40 years. So this is one of the reasons why the rich get richer, is they invest in assets, and the poor just keep working and spending it on liabilities. But in terms of the investment that I made in assets, that's one of the things that allows me to achieve a really good work-life balance. Because when we first started up the digital marketing agency, I didn't need to take a wage. And actually, I take very little in terms of cost, which allows us to plough all that money that I would normally take because I need to live. We can plough all that money back into the business, and that helps expand the business, helps it scale, helps it maintain its stability. If we lose a couple of customers, which we never have done as yet, but it's going to happen at some point. But even if that does happen, the assets that I've got that generate my cash flow, that allows me to have a great work-life balance, okay? But that's not the be-all, end-all in terms of why I've got a good work-life balance. The final part of the puzzle here, and I say this is a final part, there's an infinite number of parts to this puzzle, okay? But the really big part is I don't manage the workers, I just manage the managers, okay? Think about that. I'm so disassociated from the people who do the work. Very rare will I deal with them directly. That's because I have managers who deal with those people. And so I just manage the managers, which means I've got 2 or 3 people that I need to speak to, whereas the managers will have 10, 20, 30 people that they need to speak to. So in terms of my work-life balance, I'm not having to go and have 30 conversations with 30 different people. I've got 3 conversations, once a week, maybe twice a week. And that's it. I don't have to continually be on at the team that we've got because we've got managers in place. Now, obviously, for some businesses, you can't do that. You have to be hands-on, but I would even disagree with that. I don't think that's the case at all. If you're a butcher, you hire butchers who do the work for you, and your job is to go knocking door to door and telling people how good your lamb is, and would you like me to drop it off for you next week as a sample? And then let's get you a direct debit set up, 20 quid a month, and let's get you the best parts, and once a month have the best lamb of your life, right? Like, it's not rocket science. There's all sorts of different ways of doing it. But you've got to start moving from this idea that you should be doing everything. We've taken on a couple of clients recently who are just going through the transition process of being solopreneurs to being business owners. And it's really interesting watching them evolve. And they're now starting to ask some better questions. And some of the questions they're asking is, or is it better question? Yeah, better questions are, how do I plan 4 weeks worth of content for Active Campaign, for example? What emails should they be and what should they look like? And now they're starting to plan ahead. Instead of waking up one morning going, damn, I've got no business, I better send an email. They're now waking up going, I know I'm not going to have business in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So what can I do extra that's going to bring that in so that when I get to 3 or 4 weeks, the work is already done and I'm just now closing business instead of running around trying to get people to engage with me. And it's like this idea of the content marketing that we do for clients is that it should be 30 days in advance. One of the things we really hate is when a client phones up and says, oh guys, I've got this thing on tomorrow. And we're like, well, tough. We ain't doing anything for it. We're not an organisation that drops everything because you haven't planned properly. That's not how we want to run our business, and that's not how you should be running your business either. You should be planning everything in advance. The companies, if you talk to someone who works in a company that designs Christmas brochures, they are doing the design for the Christmas brochure in Easter. And Easter, they were doing before Christmas. And before Christmas, it was back in Easter. And Valentine's Day is November. Like, they're planning that far in advance because that's how you run a business. So when we talk about work-life balance, when you first start out running a business, you start off by not really knowing what you're doing. You just do everything when it pops up and there's no real plan to it. And this is why you end up working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and why you also start to burn out. Whereas actually, when you start to plan stuff in advance, then you can start to build your business properly. Like, we're forecasting for how many clients we're going to have in a month or two. And then we're looking at what resources are we going to need in order to service those clients to the levels that they expect and that we expect. And so, we're looking to recruit again. And we're looking to recruit like 2 or 3 months in advance. We don't take on 4 clients and go, damn, we need to find someone else to do all this extra work. No. We're planning and forecasting how the business is going to look. So, and I kind of feel I digress a little bit here, but the work-life balance has to go back onto what's important in your life. So what's important in my life is, I get up and I go to sports day, let's say, or I pick up the little one from school, or at 10 o'clock at night, I can be available for a client who's having a little breakdown because something bad's happened. And I can do that, and actually it doesn't impact my work-life balance because the rest of my life is work-life balanced properly. And then if I don't want people phoning at 10 o'clock at night or sending me a message, I'm like, if you've got a problem, let me know. Let me know what it is in a message so I can understand it. And then let's get on a call 9 a.m. next morning and then we can deal with whatever problem you're having and get them through it. And that's what we can do. But I set that as an expectation for what I expect to happen in my life for my work-life balance. And you should be doing the same. You shouldn't be... So part of this is learning how to say no to people. You shouldn't be, Dan, can you do this? Yeah. It's crazy. Like, you've got no control over your time. So really, we're talking about control here and having a really good control over your time and when you decide to do things and when you decide not to do things. And setting expectations for others so that they actually know when you're going to do things and when you're not going to do things as well. So that also helps you have a better work-life balance. But the best way to do it is to run your own life. And I have, my spreadsheets allow me to work out where we're going to go on holiday, how much money we're going to spend on that holiday, and we can save up. If it's a £2,000 holiday, £200 a month for 10 months, that's the holiday paid for. I don't like to get to July and then have to find £2,000 to go on holiday. That's ridiculous. But this is what people do, or even worse, they end up putting on a 20% credit card. It just doesn't make any sense to me, that. So you've got to start planning ahead. So the spreadsheet, so you can plan your financials, that works. Your goals, where do you want to be in 5 years? Because if you want something to happen in 5 years, you can't wait until year 5 and go, right, I'm going to make that happen. Now is the time that you actually start working towards that 5-year goal to have occurred. You can't just get there and go, right, I'm going to make this happen. Because you'll actually get there and you go, oh, it didn't work. And it's because you didn't put the work in. So you have to plan everything. If you want 8% body fat and 6-pack abs, like, you can't wake up in July and get it in August. You just can't do that. If you're 10 kilos overweight, it's not going to happen. But what you can do is go, okay, in 24 months, if I lose half a kilo a month, that's 12 kilos. So you're going to be ripped in just 2 years, and you're going to work out 3 times a week, and you're going to run 3 times a week. That will get you to that goal in 2 years' time, quite simply, right? But you've got to start planning everything. When we see people who've got a really bad work-life balance, they have very little control over their own time, very little control over their finances. They are literally flying by the seat of their pants and not really knowing what's going to come next. And we don't like that as business owners. And we expect you not to like that too, because your standards have to get risen, okay? Because when you leave school, no one tells you this stuff. You leave university, no one tells you this stuff. No one tells you about all this planning that you should be doing. And the usual excuses, I don't have time to plan, I've got so much on, I'm spending all my time planning. And that is what a loser says. Sorry if you said that, I said it too. But in that moment, that's what a loser would say. I'm too busy to plan. Planning is key. That's how you're going to perform and get a work-life balance. And so if you need that work-life balance to improve, start planning ahead. All right, that will do us on this podcast. I hope that's useful for you. My voice seems a little bit lower today. I'm actually recording this in a hotel room in Leeds. We'll come to Leeds for our summer holidays, believe it or not. And it actually allows me to get some work done because we're in the middle of the school holidays and things. But so my voice is a little bit subdued just because of that. I don't want to be shouting and things. Anyway, hope that's useful for you, and we'll catch up with you on the next podcast. My name's Dan Latto. Take care.